Coming up, she is the new leader of the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian. We visit with Cynthia Chavez Lamar. And legal battles are preventing some Crow citizens from being able to hunt off their reservation. Plus, the Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma creates incentives for filmmakers. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is honored to be a supporter of Indian Country Today. ASU offers the only online undergraduate digital media literacy degree, teaching students how to recognize and combat inaccuracies on all platforms. They are using cutting-edge tools and tactics to separate fact from fiction in a digital world overloaded with misinformation. Learn more at cronkite.asu.edu.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Amarawa Hopa. Thank you for joining the ICT Newscast. Officials from the Indigenous Environmental Network say charges will be dropped against 33 water protectors. In October, the water protectors were arrested for unlawful entry after they occupied the lobby of the Department of the Interior. The water protectors had several demands at the time, including for the Bureau of Indian Affairs to be abolished, and they wanted the federal government to give land back to tribal nations. Gina Peltier was arrested and tased at the demonstration. She says she's received reports that the U.S. Attorney General will not go through with the charges.
So for me and for, the Attorney General in Washington, D.C. to drop the charges, it's just like, thank you. Thank you for recognizing the fact that we were there to express our concerns and exercise our rights because people are suffering. And, now can we move forward in, actually listening to what we have to say and then and going with our suggestions on how to better it. We have demands also, we have ways we can make it better. It's just, you got to allow us to take care of ourselves. And
Peltier says the altercation with police also left her with a broken hand. Sentencing for unlawful entry includes 6 months in jail and a $1,000 fine. A budget surplus could potentially help underfunded communities in Minnesota. Last Thursday, the People of Color and Indigenous Caucus laid out key priorities for the new year. This unique group of more than 20 lawmakers is made up of both House and Senate members. It was formed in 2017 to better serve communities of color. State Representative Jamie Becker-Finn is in her third term in office.
Here in Minnesota, we have a $7 billion budget surplus projected. And so there's kind of a lot of opportunity this year, more than maybe any other time, for us to make some really strategic investments to sort of right the ship when it comes to things that we've historically underfunded and not paid attention to. So, we're really focused on education, making sure that all of our kids can access both educational tools, but also other resources that kids access through school.
She says besides education, the group is also tackling housing and public safety. Representative Becker-Finn is also the chair of the House Judiciary Committee. Money sent by Mexican migrants in 2021 is expected to top $50 billion for the first time. A Putpecha community is one of many rural indigenous areas largely dependent on this income. Traditional textiles, woodworking, and construction live on largely because they are funded by migrants who send money home. Maria de los Angeles Gonzalez is a local artist forced to illegally migrate to the United States in order to keep her family afloat.
The
money that my husband and I earned in the United States, we sent it here to Mexico, to my family, so that they could help us buy a piece of land and construction material to build our house, our home. Before leaving to the United States, we didn't have a place to live. We were living with my in-laws.
Hundreds of men from the rural indigenous town work at the same vegetable farm in upstate New York every year. Jose Gonzalez was one of those workers and says being able to send money home really helped his family and business.
The remittances that are sent here have helped my family a lot. We've been able to pay the expenses for the 3 children I have.
This indigenous community's next generation may see an influx of remittances that will allow them to build a better life in the U.S. Well, a TV cooking competition has all eyes on a chef from the Prairie Band of Potawatomi. Thanks to Stephanie Despain, a traditional native berry sauce known as wojapi is on its way to becoming a household word. On this week's episode of the Fox cooking competition, Next Level Chef, Despain added wojapi to a short rib sandwich. The show's creator and co-host Gordon Ramsay declared her dish the winner and praised her for highlighting the flavors of her heritage. Despain spent her childhood on the Osage Reservation in Pahuska, Oklahoma, and says she is driven to popularize indigenous cuisine. She is still in the running for the $250,000 grand prize and a year-long mentorship with the celebrity chef hosts of the show. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Coming up, the Cherokee Nation just announced a $1 million film fund, and we learn about hunting rights in Wyoming. But first, we speak to a history-making museum director. Stay with us. Cynthia Chavez Lamar made history earlier this month when she was announced as the next director of the National Museum of the American Indian. She will serve as the museum's first female director. Beginning on February 14th, she will supervise the museum's 3 facilities located in Washington, D.C., in New York City, and in Maryland. And Cynthia joins us now. Hi, Cynthia. Welcome to the Newscast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So it's been a few weeks now since your promotion was announced. What has been the reaction?
Well, I've been really pleasantly surprised by the outpouring of support and, of course, well wishes from a number of people across the U.S. and some from Canada and other places internationally. I think this is a great time in terms of bringing attention to the Smithsonian and the National Museum of the American Indian. So I'm very thankful for the outpouring of support.
What does the director of NMAI do?
Well, the director basically provides oversight for all of the museum's activities, including fundraising, building and collection stewardship, programming, exhibits, just a number of activities that the museum does on a yearly basis, working towards achieving our mission.
Talking about that mission, one of the pillars of the mission of NMAI is to educate both Native and especially non-Native people about the history and the culture of Indigenous communities in this country. I'm really curious, how will you push forward that narrative of, educating people about Indigenous communities in your tenure?
Well, I'm very invested in collaboration and partnership with Indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere. Throughout my career, that's been sort of the hallmarks of my practice. So, of course, that's something that I look forward to continuing to encourage and promote at the museum. And, in doing so, really will help raise the visibility of Indigenous perspectives and interpretations of our histories, our cultures, and arts.
For folks who have never had the opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. and visit NMAI in person, is that going to be something that you want to focus on for maybe Native youth to be able to, go to the website and find exhibits online? Or how will you sort of make it more accessible for Native people who can't travel to D.C.?
Well, from NMAI's inception, there has been this focus on outreach to tribes and other native and Indigenous communities across the Western Hemisphere. And then, of course, in the last 2 years with the pandemic, the museum has really pushed to have more of a digital and online presence. So we will continue to pursue those types of programs and exhibits that are available digitally. The collection is also available online, not in its entirety right now, but we are moving towards it completely being available online. But anybody today can go to our website and search the collection and see a good portion of what we have in the collection. And we also have exhibits available online. I also want to note that we in the last 5-6 years or so, we're very also invested in loans to tribal museums and cultural centers, in the effort to bring those collections closer to their communities of origin. We just recently completed a large loan to the First Americans Museum in Oklahoma City. We look forward to doing more loans with tribal museums and cultural centers.
Talking about goals, what kind of goals do you have moving into this position?
Well, it's been great to be part of the museum since 2014. So, I've been very involved in the development of various guiding documents that will help move the museum forward, probably for the next 5 to 10 years. We're looking at, in particular, our visitor experience in all of 3 locations. How can we improve upon that? And also looking at the Cultural Resources Center out in Suitland, looking at a possible expansion of that building to add more collections, housing space, to improve our hosting experience for Indigenous visitors who wish to see the collections and other researchers as well. I'm really excited about the fact that we have some really good guiding documents in place that can help provide that direction to make NMAI better and stronger.
My last question, Cynthia, you're taking this leadership at a time when other Pueblo women are also taking key roles across this country. For a young Native kid who's watching this interview, what message do you have for them?
That's a really good question, and I'm going to do my best not to become emotional. It's when I look back at my youth and where I come from, Gacha, San Felipe Pueblo, I'm just very, very thankful for what the community and my elders and my family have instilled in me in terms of values and beliefs. And, that's what's helped keep me strong throughout my entire career and from being away from going from gotcha, that's hard. And I just say to, those young kids out there, believe in yourself, draw strength from where you come from, because that's so important, in terms of our representation. We have to be who we are in any position that we're in. So I just say, be strong, believe in yourself, and just keep moving forward.
Cynthia Chavez Lamar, the next director of the National Museum of the American Indian. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When we come back, we hear about a $1 million program to help filmmakers film on tribal land. Stay with us. Last week, the Cherokee Nation announced a $1 million program that will pave the way for more productions to be filmed on tribal lands. The program is a first of its kind, and its goal is simple: to bring more production projects to the Cherokee Nation. We are joined now with the director and leader of the project, Jennifer Lauren. Welcome, Jennifer.
How
did this project start?
The Cherokee Nation we have been creating content for ourselves for quite some time. So they hired me about 7 years ago to executive produce and host a television show called OCO, Voices of the Cherokee People. And through that process, we really partnered with the local and indigenous film communities here in northeastern Oklahoma. And we're now in our 7th season of the show. It's been very successful, but through that process, we learned that we can do two things when we're creating our own content as Indigenous people. We can tell the stories that need to be told and tell them appropriately. At the same time, we can provide and create jobs for Indigenous people in this industry. And so over the years, we thought we need to have a film office. And so 3 years ago, we launched our Cherokee Nation film office, and we had a 5-year plan. At the end of that 5-year plan, we said we want to have our own film incentive. And so film incentives are things that a lot of states have, and it's sort of a way to dangle a carrot in front of filmmakers to say, come here and film here and bring your economic activity to our state. And so the state of Oklahoma has had a wonderful film incentive program for years and years, but recently has really upped their game in offering a $30 million a year film incentive. And so Oklahoma's getting very serious about diversifying its economy to include the film and television industry. And we saw it as a perfect opportunity for us to say, yes, come to Oklahoma, but then also come to the Cherokee Nation. And we want to specifically make Cherokee Nation a hub for Indigenous filmmaking, Native stories, because we feel like, we have all of the support here, and we have the capability, and there's already a lot of Native projects happening here in northeastern Oklahoma.
Have you actually learned of any other tribal nations who have done an incentive like this before?
Not that I know of. I know that Diné, the Navajo Nation, is also doing a lot of work in the film industry, and I've spoken with their film office. And before COVID, we were kind of working to share thoughts and processes with each other, and then COVID hit. But I know they're doing a lot in the film way. I think they have a marketing campaign to bring film to their nation, but they don't have an incentive that I know of. But I wouldn't be surprised if they do soon.
So, when we're talking about bringing films to the Cherokee Nation, what does that look like in practice? Does that mean actually, filming with big cameras out there in the reservation? Does that look like editing footage at, a film studio? What does that look like?
All of the above. So yes, what that means is that we are inviting films, of any budget size. A small budget film might be, a $2 million film. Micro budget would be in the thousands of dollars, and then your high end budget films are going to be like your Killers of the Flower Moon, which is like $200 million budget. And so when they come here in any of that range, depending on how big the film is, they're hiring a large number of people, even small budget. You're looking at a large number of crew members. And so that's providing jobs. And so you're talking about, yes, all of the above. You'll have cameras, you'll have camera assistants, you'll have production assistants, you'll have people building sets, you'll have people recording sound, you'll have people working on lighting. And these are all jobs that anyone can learn how to do. It's a great trade. And so we're hoping that people will come here, and we'll incentivize them to come here, but then they'll teach people here locally how to do these jobs while they're here. Then if, when the film is over, we have more of a crew base here, so that when the next project comes, we've got people ready to help.
We talk a lot on our newscast about changing the narrative in the media, and it sounds like this project is also part of changing that narrative. Would you agree?
Absolutely, 100%. We know that the narrative change is happening, and we're really excited about that. And we definitely want to help be a leader in that way. And so that's one of the things that we'll take into consideration when we are pre-approving projects, because we'll have a lot of applications. And so we're going to take that into consideration. What are you doing to help change the Native narrative?
I'm really curious for a filmmaker who might be watching this and say, I'm really interested in learning more about that. Where can people find more information?
Absolutely. Our website is a wonderful resource. It is cherokee.film. And I want to make sure that it's clear that our programming and everything is not just for Cherokees, that everything we do is available for any citizens of Native tribes. And so cherokee.film is a great place to learn about it. We have an incentive drop down that has frequently asked questions and all sorts of resources.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, we check in with ICT and underscore reporter Chris Adland about his latest story. Some citizens of the Crow tribe want to be able to hunt big game off of their reservation, but a series of court and legislation battles have been holding that up. Chris Adland is a reporter for ICT and underscore news. He recently published a story about this topic called Hoping for an End to Years-Long Treaty Rights Fight, and he joins us now to tell us more. Hi, Chris. Let's start with an important character in your story. Who is Clavin Herrera?
He's what really kicked off this whole saga, I guess. So in 2014, he was hunting with a party of other Crow tribal members and friends and family members, and they'd been on the Crow reservation and had ventured, following kind of a herd of elk, had ventured just outside of the reservation and onto the Bighorn National Forest in Wyoming, and they killed some elk. And the Wyoming Fish and Game Department found out about that subsequently, and then cited him, and he was charged with a crime, and eventually found guilty of misdemeanor crimes, poaching crimes, hunting crimes, and he had then tried to raise a treaty rights defense and was unsuccessful, and that made it all the way to the Supreme Court. And in 2019. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of Mr. Herrera and the Crow tribe in kind of affirming that the Crow tribe, the nation, had off-reservation treaty hunting rights, and that is still in kind of an ongoing question and still an ongoing saga, despite that ruling more than 2.5 years ago.
There are many hunters like Mr. Herrera. Do you think that, using him as an example has sort of scared other Native hunters from going off the reservation and killing big game?
So what's happened since then is the Supreme Court kicked that case back down to the state courts again. The state had disagreed and successfully argued that the tribe didn't have those treaty rights, but the Supreme Court disagreed and said that in fact Crow tribal citizens did have that treaty right, but said there were some unanswered questions that the state courts needed to answer, being whether the state, kind of what sort of conservation reasons they may have to regulate or impose some sort of regulation mechanism on tribal members to regulate hunting, and then to whether this specific part of the national forest could be considered occupied. The state didn't do that. The state continued to kind of insist that there was no treaty right, period. And in the meantime, also had said that we're not going to change our enforcement policies or practices, kind of essentially meaning that the threat still existed, that if a tribal citizen was caught kind of hunting off reservation in violation of state hunting laws, that they could be arrested, cited, charged, etc. And so that has, according to some lawyers working on this case, has had a chilling effect. And likewise, kind of with another Wyoming tribe who has basically the same treaty right and want to do the same thing, but that process has been slowed.
That's a great question, which is exactly what I was going to ask next, are there other nations, tribal nations in the state of Wyoming who are facing similar issues?
Sure. Yeah, the Eastern Shoshone tribe, who occupy the Wind River Reservation in central Wyoming, and share it with the Northern Arapaho tribe. But they signed a treaty the same year, a different treaty, but contains the same off-reservation, treaty right and treaty language. And after this 2019 Supreme Court ruling, the tribe announced that they wanted to start exercising this right, and we're going to start kind of drafting regulations and going forward with this. But that process has been slowed since then, partially because of COVID and kind of the group that had been meeting to kind of hash out, the language that would, the regulation language that tribal members would have to abide by, stop meeting because of COVID, of course. But, talking with the tribal chairman, the business council chairman, he said, the uncertainty created by the state kind of continuing its prosecution of Clavin Herrera and continue to insist that no off-reservation treaty hunting right actually existed, that has had also an effect as far as kind of slowing the process, just because there was questions whether the state would be hostile to the Eastern Shoshone going ahead and exercising this right, at least while the court cases remained active.
Well, Chris, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. Thank you for watching. For all the latest news, visit IndianCountryToday.com. I am Aaliyah Chavez.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.